Welcome to our third video on the marketing macro environment. And in this video, we're going to focus on the political, legal, and cultural environments that affect marketing departments within businesses. So let's start by thinking about the political environment. And by this, we really mean any forces that influence or limit organizations, businesses in society. So these are most likely to be governments, government agencies, pressure groups, and so on. Of course, legislation, laws also come under this heading, and we know that they're there to protect companies, to protect consumers, and to protect the interests of society as a whole. So what does that look like in practice? Well, again, I've got a short video for you which talks about a current political influence that is hot news in the UK at the moment, and that is Brexit. If you haven't heard about that, Brexit is all about the UK currently in the process of leaving the European Union. This video introduces that topic, and we're going to use it to think about how the UK's departure from the European Union, how that's likely to affect marketing.
A whole production line grinds to a halt. Since the beginning of the month, the UK's BMW factory hasn't produced a single Mini. The manufacturer assembles 15% of the cars bought this side of the channel, and it's brought forward its yearly downtime, normally scheduled for the summer, in anticipation of a no-deal Brexit. Although assembled in the UK, the Mini depends heavily on Europe. With a Romanian-made steering wheel, Spanish headlights, Polish taillights, and a crankshaft produced in France, 60% of its parts are imported, and profits depend on the free flow of those goods into the UK.
It has to get stuff across the border all the time, 24 hours a day really, and because of that, it has found itself immediately impacted, not so much by Brexit, but the possibility of Brexit, and clearly they've taken this step to try to reduce the impact on their businesses.
Other manufacturers like Jaguar Land Rover and Peugeot are in the same boat and have planned temporary closures to minimize the risks. Nissan has decided to stop production of its flagship models in the UK, and as for Honda, the Japanese company confirmed in February that it will shut down its Swindon plant in 2021, with a loss of about 3,500 jobs. One of the sectors most dependent on Europe, the automobile industry has a lot to lose in a disorderly Brexit. The period of uncertainty alone has harmed the British automobile sector. Production is down 15% over the last 9 months.
Okay, so what does that mean for marketers? This Brexit that's happening, the UK leaving the European Union. Well, we saw there highlighted some of the issues that may arise or that are arising within the car industry. What's that going to mean for marketers? Well, it might mean that there are fewer goods being imported from Europe into the UK, so there might be less competition for British products, and that might mean that marketers change their product range to more closely meet the needs of British consumers. However, the downside of that is that British companies might find it more difficult to export their cars to the European Union. So they will have lost a whole bunch of consumers. Now, the solutions to those problems are not only marketing ones, but they are marketing ones in part. So what happens, for example, if different countries impose tariffs, in other words, taxes on imports and exports? That's likely to increase prices, and price is a marketing issue because it's part of the reason that consumers choose one product over another. It's part of the value proposition that businesses offer to their customers. That price is key in that. So any political disruption that has an impact either on the nature of the product or the price becomes a marketing problem. It may also be that rules and regulations around cars and other products change as a result of Brexit. Currently, Rules and regulations relating to products are the same across the whole European Union. And it may be that as we go forward, businesses and marketing departments need to adapt their products to meet the different regulations in those different markets. So Brexit potentially is a massive challenge for marketing departments and businesses as a whole, and that's only one aspect of the political environment. A more enduring aspect of the political environment in all countries is laws, or the legal environment. What you see on your screen now is a short summary of some of the main laws that pertain to consumers and relate to marketing in some way or another. And laws change all the time. So again, marketing departments have to be absolutely up to date with all of these laws to make sure that not only their products comply with these laws, but the way that they operate complies with these laws. Businesses need to offer services, for example, guarantees, offers of money back, which comply with the legal regulations that are in place in any market at any particular time. So this is a really important one for businesses to keep abreast of. As well as the legal environment, though, there is this idea of social responsibility, which is connected to the idea of the cultural environment, I think. So we're all familiar with this term, I think, social responsibilities. It's where companies actively seek out ways to try and protect the long-run interests of consumers and the environment. And often companies will develop policies, guidelines, and other responses to these social responsibility issues that we all care about. But there is a fine line between CSR, corporate social responsibility, that you learned about in semester 1. There's a fine line between CSR and marketing. Are businesses really trying to protect our long-run interests, or are they just adapting their marketing so that we feel, so that in reality they are protecting our long-run interests? And is there a difference between those two things, really? Businesses might adopt socially responsible policies in order to better meet our needs, in order that they sell products. But if they're behaving better, then we all win, I think. So, some examples of corporate social responsibility in action. Things like reducing the carbon footprints, making factories, making shops, making vehicles more efficient, use less carbon. There are many companies now who are adopting the use of electric vehicles and not using oil-driven vehicles anymore for this reason, partly. Improving labour policies, getting a good reputation for the way you treat your workers is a good social responsibility thing to do. And I know that personally, I am more likely to buy products from companies who treat their workers well. And that leads us into fair trade, which is all about giving a fair share of the profits to suppliers. Companies give to charitable causes, perhaps because they believe in them, but perhaps because it sends out a more favourable message to consumers. Does it matter in the end if they're doing the right thing? Some companies encourage their staff to volunteer in the community and support that. And some businesses, an increasing number of businesses, I think about making their investments in socially and environmentally conscious activities. So, for example, there are many consumers now who will not invest in banks who do not think about the social and environmental impact of their investments. So these things, this idea of social responsibility, I think, is becoming more and more important for marketers to take account of. This is linked to this idea of cause-related marketing. So businesses will often adopt cause that shows them, that gives them an image, associates their brand with generosity, with social responsibility. It gives them a positive image and perhaps makes us more likely to buy from them. But there is this controversy that I have alluded to, that we doubt sometimes as consumers, are these companies really, truly being socially responsible? Or is it just a strategy for selling more than a strategy for giving? Well, if they do give, then perhaps it doesn't matter so much what their motives are. So linked to social responsibility and corporate social responsibility is this idea of the cultural environment. It's linked, but it's not always the same. So as time goes past, society changes, doesn't it? The norms change. We perhaps have different beliefs to those of our parents. Our parents perhaps had different beliefs and convictions to those of their parents. So societal norms and beliefs change as time goes by, and businesses need to keep up to date with that. So if people are more tolerant to differing sexuality, if people are more welcoming of equal opportunities, if people are more used to different cultures and different ways of doing things, then we want to buy from companies who reflect those beliefs and reflect those values. And if companies don't reflect our beliefs and values, again, we're much less likely to be their customers. So businesses need to respond to that cultural environment. And they can do that, really, they can take two different approaches to that. Most firms tend to be reactive. And what I mean by that is that they look at what's happening in society and they accept it and they try to meet the new needs of consumers, but they don't try to change anything. There are some businesses, and I think these are much fewer in number, who take a proactive approach. In other words, they decide for themselves what they believe in, and they develop strategies to try to influence and change the environment. They take aggressive actions to try and convince their consumers that they can do things in different ways. So there are different approaches to that. Okay, so this week we've done a lot of work on looking at the marketing environment. So by the end of this week, you should be able to describe all of these environmental issues, environments. You should be able to explain how changes in these environments affect marketing decisions, and you should be able to identify trends that are happening as well. Okay, we're going to finish there. As ever, there are a few questions for you to answer.